In this lesson, we're going to look at a little bit more advanced stock screener called FinViz at finviz.com. We'll take a look at that. I'll show a demonstration of that for you so you can see something a little bit more powerful as far as narrowing down the thousands and thousands of stocks down there to maybe a few that you can then research further and find out more information, both quantitatively, the ratios, the numbers, and qualitatively from management, strategy, goals, all those kind of things that we learned about in the course, or learn about things as far as how to pick stocks. So right now we got to narrow our universe of stocks we want to look at, and this advanced screener can really help you with that. Two other things real quick. One, I don't make any recommendations, of course, on any particular stock. I want to just educate and show how you can use these tools to benefit you. And also, if you happen to use an online broker, an E-Trade, Scottrade, those kind of guys, TD Ameritrade, or a full service broker, they can do a lot of those things for you, and a lot of those online brokers like Scottrade and E-Trade, they have their own stock research tools as well. So if you belong to them, check out, see what they've got for screeners. But we're going to look at one that's free for everybody, and that's FinViz, and you can certainly give this a try. It's actually a very, very powerful tool. So let's go take a look at it. Okay, so we're here at FinViz. At finviz.com /screener. You can see it up here in the corner as far as how to access that, and or just search for FinViz screener. You'll be able to find it as well. And this is a little bit more advanced, maybe a lot more advanced screener than other screeners that are out there, and it's pretty good. It's really pretty good. And you can use it for looking up individual stocks, or you can use it to kind of sort through a whole selection of stocks. So right now when you get to it, you'll see listed by its name and ticker symbols here, ticker and company name. There's 300 and at least 359 pages. It keeps going. There's 20 stocks on an individual page. So you can see, boy, if I'm trying to narrow this universe, I'm down like at least over 7,000 stocks right there and more. So we need to narrow this down. And the nice thing with FinViz, it gives you these choices up at the top here where you can then, kind of narrow things down as far as what you're looking for. And we'll go through an example here and then how to compare, different stocks to each other as well. So this is nice for a comparison as well. So first off, we're right here and we want to start narrowing our searches down. So let's use for the example the same kind of thing where we're going to look for a drug manufacturer, dividend payer, safe stock that'll pay us a dividend. And let's see what kind of comes up there and see if we can kind of narrow this down and get some information how we get there. You could type in the individual tickers if you know some stocks and stuff, but let's say we don't know. We want to search the big universe of this here. You can see at the top here under filters, this is how it will narrow it down. If you wanted to be on a particular exchange, like a custom exchange, you have to pay to be that, or else the New York Stock Exchange. I never put anything in there because I want to search whatever I want to search on. Same thing with index and all that. But let's say we're looking for a high dividend paying stock, or at least relatively high dividend paying stock. So here I see dividend yield. So let's say I want it to be at least over 2%. I could go even higher, but let's say at least 2%. Well, you can see it's narrowed my choices down now. You can see there's Apple, all these different companies, all these different sectors, and it keeps going. There's over 105 now different pages of information. But let's say I want to narrow this down further. A good way to do that is by sector and industry. So if you want to kind of think about if I'm interested in a particular sector or industry, this is a way to narrow it down. So let's say we're looking in the healthcare sector. You can see all these different sectors here: consumer goods, financial, whatever, technology, you name it. And we're looking for healthcare sector. And you see my screen keeps updating. Now I'm down to 2 pages. So this is really narrowing it down because I'm at over 2% dividend yield. So anybody in healthcare who does not pay a dividend is not in my screen right now. I'm not going to be able to see that. And let's say I'm looking for large pharmaceuticals, right? I'm not looking at medical instruments or anything, but I'm looking at these large drug companies. So drug manufacturers, major, right? I click that. And boy, now I'm narrowed it down to 10 companies, right? So now I've got a nicer screen, a little bit more detailed of a screen versus like what we were seeing in Yahoo Finance, and more information, right? I can see the industry, I can see the country, market cap, price to earnings, just on this very first page, which is the overview. From here along the bottom, you can see more information too. But I could keep going as far as how I want to, sort this out. Maybe I want to, put in some more fundamental stuff. Right now I've got a dividend yield, healthcare, drug manufacturer, but I could click fundamentals here. And now I start seeing things like price to earnings, price to cash, these different numbers, debt to equity, things we learned about in some of our ratio type parts as far as if there's particular ratios I'm looking for. So for example, like a PEG ratio, price relative to its earnings growth, low price to earnings growth. If I'm looking for more of a value stock, I might want to look for a stock that's got a low PEG ratio, for example, versus like a high PEG ratio. So on different ratios we can look at long-term debt to equity, quick ratio, all those kind of things that are out there. So different choices that we have. So let's say I've got my dividend in there. I feel pretty good about that. But one thing with dividends, you can see in the lower right-hand corner here, is payout ratio. It's very important that they keep paying their dividends. And so the payout ratio, how much they pay out of their earnings each quarter in dividend, is important. And as we know, anything over 70% gets a little bit concerning. So maybe we're looking for something that's at least under 70%. Let's try that first and see if that narrows our field down. Well, that really narrowed our field down a lot, for something under 70% payout ratio, because that narrowed it down to, two stocks basically, this AbbVie's and this and Johnson & Johnson, and then we could keep going from there. But let's say we want it to be, we want to leave it at that 70%, and then we can then compare these two different companies. I'm very familiar with Johnson & Johnson. I'm less familiar with AbbVie, but you can see some of the information there. And then as you keep going through, you can see, valuation, here's a summary of the price earnings, the PEG, all that stuff, different numbers that you have for different pieces of information that are out there. Or you can go into financials, and same thing, you can find your ROA, which is a little hard to find in some places, return on assets. I can see my dividend yield. This is where my dividend yield is. You see where Johnson & Johnson is 2.71. AbbVie is going to pay me a better dividend yield at 3.6. And you can kind of see from there, different return on equity to return on investment, all these different things, debt to equity. Now, if I was to look at this, I'd say, wow, debt to equity and long-term debt to equity, a little higher numbers as far as with AbbVie. I might be a little bit more worried about them long-term versus very low debt to their equity for Johnson & Johnson. If we look at current ratio and quick ratio, those are, can I pay my current bills, as we learned from different ratios. And if I looked at this, I'd say you want bigger numbers here because you're looking at your liabilities versus your assets and liabilities and things like that, your current and quick ratio. So bigger the number, the better. You can see Johnson & Johnson much better for short-term ability to pay as well. So those are really good signs that I would look at for, I might be giving up a little bit in dividend yield, but I might feel better that they're gonna pay that dividend. You can look at ownership, you can look at performance, how they do in year to date, at least some quick numbers. You want to go a little bit deeper than this gives you, but at least gives you something over the last year and year to date. You can see Johnson & Johnson's doing better than them there as well, but past performance, no guarantee of future performance. You can do some technicals type stuff. Here's your beta is where you find, so you can sort by beta as well up in the top here, but or under technical. If I went to the top under technical, you can see beta as a choice here. Beta being a measure of volatility or risk. Anything above 1 is more risky compared to its index. Anything less than 1 is more or less risky and less volatile compared to the index. And you can see Johnson & Johnson below 1 is a less risky. There's less volatility. It doesn't change up and down as volatilely as high. And you can go through, you can do some custom stuff. You want to see some charts, they give you some charting stuff. Tickers is just the name of the ticker symbols, which we saw that, so we had to search for it. There's news, snapshot. You can get all the stats in one, you can't get all the stats in one spot. That's the pay one. But you can do a nice little snapshot where it gives you kind of the chart, a bunch of information, news, a description of the company, what they do, and different some insider trading stuff from the executives. So it shows you whether they're buying or selling, and you can get some information so you can dig a little deeper without having to go anywhere else. All right, so that's an example of, let's say, how to search for something as far as with these different type of companies. Real quickly, let's say I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted an overview, but I was not interested in healthcare. I'm interested in some other area, let's say financial. All right, so now it's changed. I've got the same numbers, but now I'm at financial companies. And maybe I want to we'll do one more quick here, a 3% dividend yield. So I want big dividend payers, but I want to be safe. I want that good payout ratio. So I'm going to go, I'm going to go up here under fundamentals, and I'm going to go to the corner, and so that's under 70% payout ratio. I'm going to make that under, let's see what happens under 50%. So I'm going to really narrow it down. Well, you can see there's a lot of people paying good dividends out here with these types of financial type of companies. Maybe then I want to limit my market cap then to just the biggest, as an example. Mega, mega, mega. Oh, nobody's falling in that, so now I got to go to large. Anybody there? Yeah. Okay, now I've got a couple sheets where I can continue to lower that down. I'm in the whole financial sector, which includes foreign regional banks, real estate investment trusts, asset management, life insurance. So that's a lot of different companies. Maybe I want to put that down to something more limited. And once again, I can go to the industry. I mean, the sector is financial. In the industry, let's say I'm looking at, you can see these different options as far as these different industries. I'm looking at, let's say, a bank. So let's say I'm looking at regional banks. This you can see them detailed as far as where they're at. Let's say in the Midwest, the central part of the United States. Keep fall up. Sorry about that. So let's say go in the regional banks in the central part of the United States, and I pull that up, and then that'll narrow my search. That'll narrow my search down. This is thinking about it for a second. So you can see you can have these different choices up here as far as how to do these different types of things, how to search and how to analyze stuff. So the key parts is to really look at this first part under description, these different things you want to change. Then go into your fundamental, which is looking at these different ratios to sort it down further. And then technically, I usually use beta, but you can look at some other types of moving patterns or chart or changes, especially if you're into charts and doing charts and things of that nature. So with that, this is a little overview of FinViz. We're going to use a little bit more, looking at some individual stocks here in a second. But understand FinViz is really nice as far as a screener to really kind of give you a good overview of different stocks. And you can see much more powerful to play around with. So I encourage you to kind of try some things and play around with FinViz.